What is up, everybody? Happy Friday to you. I hope that you enjoyed the holiday. You know, it's interesting. So many people have their opinions about the 4th of July. First of all, for me, I kind of take more of a religious view on a lot of the days, months, years, and seasons that are man made. And because I don't believe in nationalism anymore, right? I think that, and it's so funny because I have this old Love USA shirt, but it's one of those things where, I believe that nationalism is an extension of Satanism. And that is my position now. It's one that I've gotten firm in the last couple of years. Nationalism, patriotism, any ism really is an extension of Satanism. And again, Satan is very deceitful. He's very clever. He understands how to make people feel that something maybe that looks innocent is okay when really it's a form of worship, false worship. But with that being said, right, I think that people, they take a position on things and it's really just hyper social and political. So I saw people from the left talking about they don't feel comfortable celebrating 4th of July, not because it's just a form of paganism and, nationalism, but because women's right to reproduce is being threatened. And it's like, first of all, women's reproductive rights are not being threatened. This is where the Democrats, all they have is Roe v. Wade and its abortion argument. And, this is where understanding the Constitution really matters, right? Because there's the Constitution, there are the foundations, right? And then there's basically the expansion of it. So it's like whatever is not defined in terms of the federal government's rights, right? Or, their powers, if you will, is defined as the state rights and the states basically their powers, right? So the abortion topic is a state issue, much like marijuana is a state issue, because America is a republic. It's a constitutional republic. It means for the people, by the people, and each state is going to have their laws that align with the unions of the states, right? So, Joe Biden said something in the debate. He says, having this issue kicked off to the states, that's just like having civil rights kicked off to the state. And it's like, I really wish that people would stop conflating these other fringe issues with Black people issues. First of all, when you're talking about the right to have an abortion, right? There is no right in being able to have an abortion. Abortion really is an entitlement because the root cause of having an abortion more times than not is not rape or incest like these people like to say. Those are scenarios in which, one would be rightfully, considering an abortion, right? But most abortions are happening because of whole culture that is being promoted in the entertainment space. And that's just what it is, right? You see your Megan Thee Stallions, all these hypersexualized pop singers and female rappers, right? They're encouraging these young women to pursue whole culture, right? Which leads to unwanted pregnancies, right? So, it's one of those things where abortions more times than not is a method of birth control for a lot of these women who are on their sexual revolution, and they have yet to develop their grace as a woman because they are basically trying to emulate a bunch of disgraceful women. But off that, I caught this post by Candace Owens, and yes, I still follow Candace Owens because, again, I always like to see what grift she's on, and it seems like right now Candace is sort of staying in her Christian, conservative, sort of white supremacist, audience. And she's pretty much aligning with that group because obviously she has a mutual disdain for certain Jews, right? And I'm not going to say Candace hates Jews. I'm not going to say that she is an anti Semite, but there is a segment of the Jewish community that she has a disdain for, and rightfully so. I think when you look at the patterns of people, right? People are like, why does it matter that they're Jewish? It actually does matter because if a whole bunch of Black people were leading the charge that was causing certain inequities and disenfranchisements, right? People will be looking at the Blacks, right? They always like to frame crime and uncivilized behavior with the Blacks, right? I mean, every group has their tags, right? So let's just keep it a buck, right? It does matter in a lot of instances because we have a lot of nepotism in the United States. We have a lot of people who are trying to gatekeep success on all levels in this nation. So it really does matter because if the reoccurring patterns aren't lying, then that means that somebody needs to talk to their group and get some more understanding, right? Because there's always going to be a division when you have high levels of nepotism and supremacy, and it doesn't help that a lot of these groups have the same thing, right? Now it's a war between the nepotism and the narcissists and the supremacists a lot of times in America right now, right? It's not just white supremacy. Supremacy is coming out in all forms in America. But back to what I was saying, I caught a post that she was talking about. Candace made a comment about religion being pagan. Science being a form of paganism. And when you think about the history of science, and even when you read the ancient texts, she's absolutely right. Science definitely is the study of how things work, right? So there was a guy who was trying to throw shade on Candace for even making those comments. And he goes, she's in front of a computer, blah, blah, blah. She's in front of technology. And it's like, come on, bro, be a little bit stronger. You're supposed to be the smartest person and one of the smartest people in the world, right? Right. So you know the difference between a study of something and an application of something, okay? Science is the study of something, right? Technology is the application, right? So Candace was sitting in front of a computer technology, not a computer science, right? Computer science is studying how to build that thing, right? That's what it is. But the application is the technology in itself that actually works and functions, right? Applying the science. So people are just all over her about this, but she reposted this video, an interview that Joe Rogan had with Terrence Howard, who's been making noise because of his new theories about the periodical table and sound and frequencies and stuff. And then you have Eric Weinstein. I'm not familiar with him. I'll do a little bit more research about Eric Weinstein. But Eric Weinstein is pretty much talking about the manipulation of science and how there have been foreign entities who have come into the United States and basically defiled the science, the true higher science. And honestly, I feel very fortunate that I grew up in the 90s where it was almost like the last rites to real higher, higher education in America, meaning that, we didn't grow up being really indoctrinated. We were really being educated to be global competitors. And I feel like after my graduation class, I graduated in the early 2000s. I feel like there was a shift in the education and it just got lower and lower and lower and lower and lower until eventually, I don't think that they have been really centering on foundational principles and really expanding on those in critical ways. They're really infusing a lot of activism and a lot of, social science and political science into the education versus just focusing on the foundational principles. So that's a problem. But let's go into this video. This is about 3 minutes, reposted by Candace Owens on X. But let's hear what he has to say, because I want to go into this piece by piece.
You're not getting a peer review from me. I know a lot more than you do about a lot of this stuff. You're getting an elite review. And my elite review says that a lot of this is bathwater, but a small amount of this is baby. And that's not available anywhere. It's not available in a university. It's not available in a journal. That's available on the Joe Rogan Experience. And, Neil's right. If what you want is peer review, you should go to a journal, and they will laugh you out. They will take one look at your email address, and if it doesn't end in .edu, I promise you're not going to get hurt. I don't think Neil deGrasse Tyson actually knows the history of peer review. This is Google Ngrams.
Okay, so before he gets into the history of peer review, just kind of set on what he's saying to Terrence Howard, right? Terrence Howard has been extensively studying, what he believes is suppressed science. He believes that there is science that has not been shared with the public, and it's a discovery that he is very passionate about, and he has sought out what is considered high level, esteemed, scientists to review his findings, and basically he's not getting support, right? And see, this is really the thing that frustrates me, is because I'm just a regular person, right? But I have the common sense and the knowledge base to look at things around me and observe, just the patterns of things, right? And really, that is why they introduced us to the scientific method. It wasn't just something that we were supposed to learn and forget about. It was really about how do we apply this in everything we do every day, right? And that can be applied in different ways, right? It could be when you're entertaining a thought. You can use the scientific methods when there's an argument on the table, right? What do you know about it first, right? And then what have you seen about it, right? And then what further observations can you glean to draw a conclusion? That is how most people should be thinking, but they're not, because most people are not conditioned these days to really think in a scientific method way. And this is why I'm so happy that I was exposed to what I've been exposed to in my life, because it really does matter. It really does matter when you are able to critically think about nuanced things. Because it just heightens your ability to put pragmatic solutions on the table. But what he is saying, what Eric Weinstein is saying, is that and he's going to get into this more, even if you are a common sense person that can do all of that, you are not going to be taken seriously if you're not a part of this elite, good old boys club of creditable people to substantiate what you're saying. And I just think that that is baloney. I think some of the most, quote, credible people that they like to, push before people are some of the least incredible people, least intelligent people, and yet they're being forced upon us. That's why, when I go back and I really look at certain people in history that we have been promoted, oh, this person is so esteemed and they're so smart, they're a genius. And it's like, I don't believe that. And Albert Einstein is one of them. But he had a privilege that other people didn't have, obviously. So obviously he could make history as being a genius, when I don't personally believe that he was. And I don't personally believe that all of his inventions and ideas and theories were really manufactured from him. And I think it's just in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, it's like the Mark Zuckerberg effect. When you really look at Mark Zuckerberg, there's nothing original about that guy. He, in my opinion, is a copycat, right? Because even the Facebook platform, it's so funny when you look at that Social Dilemma thing where, or not Social Dilemma, but, that movie where they were kind of talking about the background. It was like a biopic of Facebook. And, they were claiming that Mark Zuckerberg, he had copied some idea or whatever the lawsuit was, right? It was about the Facebook platform in itself. But I'm like, really? The person that should have been suing Facebook at the time was the creator of BlackPlanet.com, because Black Planet was really the original Facebook. It was the interface and everything that Facebook sought to do just for college students, right? It was already there with Black Planet. Matter of fact, Black Planet had college little groups and stuff on it, right? And then they extended it with Mi Gente for the Hispanics, right? So there was actually a Facebook out there that people were using, but obviously he had more money, more clout, more pull, so he was able to elevate Facebook. And then even with the metaverse, I'm like, why isn't nobody calling out the fact that the metaverse looks just like PlayStation Home, just improved? You know what I mean? So the people that we are being sold to as these big geniuses and stuff, a lot of them are just giving copycats. I mean, they're giving, I stole somebody's idea or bought them out of their idea, and now I'm owning it as I'm owning the genius, right? And if that's how people want to make themselves look like the smartest people in society, obviously more power to you, because that's how people get down. But anyways, let's get back to Eric Weinstein and why he's talking about these elite scientists who really, their job is to manipulate, it sounds like to me.
And it tracks how often a phrase is found in the corpus of English language books published in the world. Peer review basically begins in the mid-1960s. Now, there were various forms of review. Editors, in particular, were very distinguished individuals who were chosen to not peer review things, to simply take a look at things and see who should be published and who should be not. Can we bring that back up? More or less, from what I can piece together, Ghislaine Maxwell's father, who started Pergamon Press, destroyed...
Jeffrey Epstein's Ghislaine Maxwell?
Correct. He figured out how to destroy science and make a fortune by blowing out the number of journals and forcing every university to subscribe to every journal that he could figure out how to publish, because to not subscribe to all of the journals required an admission that you had an incomplete library. So that he diluted the quality of the editorship of the leading journals. This was a very informal, high-quality enterprise. Now, most of the destruction of science, in terms of how high quality it used to be, has taken place relatively recently, post-Robert Maxwell.
So, really interesting, right? Because Robert Maxwell, if, many of you who follow the Jeffrey Epstein mess, right? Robert Maxwell was the father of Ghislaine Maxwell, the madam of the enterprise of the pedo ring. And obviously he has ties to the Israeli government, the Mossad. So, again, when you hear people talking about how foreign nations, even the ones who are supposed to be our friends, are just coming in and they're kind of infiltrating how things are operated here in America, right? And, when people want to talk about tropes, right? Again, go back to the patterns, go back to the scientific method. I mean, where some of these people are supposed to be the smartest people in the world, right? The smartest group of people in the world. Like, let's be logical about these arguments then, because that's what smart people are. They're logical, right? So here's another pattern, right? Where you have an infiltration of science. And here's the thing. If you didn't think that science was infiltrated at any other time in your life, right? I think the whole 2020 up until now through the Biden administration shows you how disrespectful these people are to natural science, down to the the vax rollout, right? All the lies they were spouting to the public about why they should get, take that solution, right? They were lies. They were absolute lies and deceptions, right? And I didn't understand how so-called credible scientists would be willing to put their name on a deception like that. Right. And it's almost like they are not teaching the kids in school. So maybe somebody felt like, hey, society is dumb enough where they'll just be able to buy this bag of garbage. Right. But a lot of people pushed back because they were like, wait, this is not how science works. And they're like, shut up, peons. Right. What do you know? You're not a subject matter expert. Right. But they don't realize that these subject matter experts are part of elite groups who are paid to lie and skew science. So let's get back.
Because now we have an enormous number of journals staffed by people who can't spot publication cartels where we agree to cite each other's work and we agree to publish stuff, pay for play. All of the nonsense that you see with irreproducible research comes after this peer review thing. The peer review thing got woven in so that people think that the scientific method and peer review are effectively the same thing, where one is an unwanted infection from the biomedical universe, which had peer review much longer than everything else. Neil is giving you a very cursory back of the hand brush off.
Of course.
Okay.
He's talking to Terrence.
All right.
Yeah. So this guy is explaining to Terrence Howard why, I guess, Neil deGrasse Tyson, that goofball scientist guy, black guy, or whatever that they got trying to promote him as like the Bill Nye science guy for black people. And it's like, this guy is goofy. He lies. He will promote non-scientific facts as facts because he's part of that elite group, and they need people like him personally to convince black people. He's like the black face of science to me. It's like, okay, we need to convince black people about something. Let's get Neil deGrasse, Tyson there. And he's like, oh, all right, black people, this is true. Scientifically, let me sound intellectual. It's like, these people are deceivers, right? And they count on people not being able to intelligently assess the things that they're saying. They're counting on people to like, oh, he has this title, these many degrees, he said it here, he was on this board and blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, again, there's a lot of nepotism in the United States. And it has been like this for decades. So some of these creditable people that you think, are making intelligent decisions, no, they're making decisions based off of what they are paid for, right? It's kind of like in that book by Ayn Rand, Atlas Shrugged, right? When they wanted to, sort of go after Henry Reardon, right? They basically started using publications, right? Smearing him, right? Like, we know that there's coordination in the media, but I think that a lot of people don't realize there's coordination and deceptions across institutions in America. There really is. There's a lot of deception, a lot of coordinated deception in America. And he's talking about just one of them. Right? Anytime you have the American Pediatrics Association that will coordinate and tell parents that, hey, you should let your child explore their gender at 2 and 3 years old, right? They know that that's really causing psychological confusion, right? And it removes the child from their natural state of being, and it creates confusion. But that confusion is necessary for them to start grooming these children psychologically, nurturing these kids into the trans culture, which is a cash cow for a lot of those people. It really is. I mean, you think about transitioning your child from the time that they're 2. Like, let's just say you got some idiot parent, and there's a lot of them, that buy into the fact that Johnny wants to be a girl because he picked up a Barbie doll. Right? And so they want to start nurturing stuff like that, right? And then they're like, oh, it's just that, look at Jazz Jennings, right? By the time that kid is from 2 to 18, in terms of buying into that culture, right? You're talking about the parents are down financially, right? That's if they don't have a network of people, helping them pay for these costs, right? You're talking about $500,000 plus just to get your child transitioned to 18, right? And that's with surgeries, post surgeries, medications, maintaining hormone levels, because again, that person is not biologically what they think they want to be. And some of these children have been literally coerced into believing that they are something that they are not, and you have a lot of feminist mothers who are intentionally turning their sons or feminizing their sons, so that they can be either ambiguous or gay or trans. And, again, there's a lot of crazy people in the world today. And this is just something that I feel like people need to be conscious of, that some of these subject matter experts, these people, like, I went to this esteemed school and I got this esteemed designation, right? It doesn't matter if you did all that and you have no pride and conviction as to what you studied. And maybe in these institutions, these people are studying a bag of garbage and they are removed from pure, natural, critical science, and they are bought into the religion of science. Excuse me. And yet they believe that they're credible. And so when people like me, I don't have a science designation, I just took science classes and I listened, right? And I've always been like a sponge, right? So when I learned something, like when I was in school, throughout school, I remember the stuff that I learned. I've been able to apply much. I can remember stuff that I learned when I was a kid that I'm able to apply because I got the foundation when I was a kid. I saw the thought, I saw the practice, and if I saw it again, then it's like reinforcements for my brain. And so now, I can, a little bit of something about everything because you experience a little something about everything. You process a little something about everything. And that's why the human brain is such a sophisticated processor, right? AI will never be able to be the same as a human brain. It is more superior, right? AI doesn't even function without the human brain. It needs human brains telling it what to do, how to think, how to process, even down to the emotional disposition, right? Because all of the content we're pushing out on the internet, like even right now, right? There's AI trying to emulate our emotions, our facial expressions, so that it looks as much like us and feels like us as possible, right? So that tells you, a lot that, about the human brain you're never going to play God and replace the sophistication of the human brain. And there's all kinds of distractions that inhibits the brain from developing. And I think if you really look at society today, there's a lot of neuroplasticity going on. And I've talked about this before. Look up what that is. I mean, there's a lot of neuroplasticity going on. A lot of people really can't process the same way because they've been really just programmed, right? When it doesn't pay to have a smartphone, right? And it's a source of information, but people are running around, oblivious and stupid instead of just going and trying to get deep in their understanding about something, right? So I thought that this post that that Candace did share from the Joe Rogan show, and actually Citizen Lens posted it and she reposted it, but it validates a lot of the things that I've been saying, which is that it doesn't matter how high level your degree is. It doesn't matter what your title is. You can still be a uncredible person. You can still be an illogical person. And again, with the level of nepotism in the United States, a lot of people being propped as credible and just esteemed or whatever, a lot of these people are just paid family members of somebody and somebody who needs to feel like they're smart, but they're really not as smart as they claim they are. And again, smart for me is very subjective, right? You can be, very versed in the understanding of certain principles about this and that, right? But again, the application of it, the testing, the observation, right? If you don't really have that consistently at all and you just talking about some principles all day, that matters, right? Most, to me, credible scientists can draw conclusions based off of pattern observations for a considerable amount of time, and they operate with their conclusions with convictions because they've seen it enough to say, okay, if this was a 1, 2, 3 off, I may want to do further evaluation. But when you start consistently seeing the patterns of something being true, it becomes a fact. And that's how a lot of real scientists base their convictions. And a lot of them, if they have strong convictions, they are not going to be able to be compromised. You can't pay them enough money to put their credibility on the line. But there are a lot of people you can pay them enough money to put their credibility on the line because they're getting paid. They're getting paid. I mean, people seek to be credible to up their coins, right? That's really what it is. So they're getting paid. So it doesn't really matter if they're credible or not. They're gonna get paid anyways. They're the title, they're the face. They use a lot of these black doctors and stuff like that, the Democrats, when they want to prove some idea about black people, which from a reality perspective, a lot of times it's not true. A lot of times they're creating blanket, things about black people instead of being intelligent enough to segment black people and really address some of these ideas that they are projecting. But again, intelligence is a gift and very few have it really these days, but it is what it is. But anyways, you guys, I hope that you have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. I am gunning to enjoy the summer before I get back to the old routine. Yeah, I'm excited. But you guys have a wonderful, wonderful weekend again, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye.